So I recently got this SP-404 MkII from Roland, which is a sampler and an interesting one at that. And I've been having this for a couple of weeks now. I haven't been playing with it as much as I'd like, just for time constraints reasons. But I wanted to make a quick video about my initial impressions and also a couple of things I noticed that I haven't seen being talked about in other YouTube videos. So yeah, let's get into it. At first, why did I get this sampler? I do own a couple of other devices. I have a Circuit Rhythm, I have a Korg Electribe, and I have an OP1, which is, in some sense, assembler as well. I wanted to get this device because it has a couple of interesting properties, and also I wanted to have something that makes me focus extremely on just the sampling part, right? This is quite a bare bones sampler with a great effects engine, obviously, but it's very, on the sampling front itself, it's very basic. It is an interesting unit though. So one of the things that I really like about it is that it has massive amounts of space. You have 16 gigabytes of internal memory, and it seems to play the samples directly from that flash storage. So there is no apparent limit on your sample size. 16 gigabytes is massive amounts of storage. And you will probably, in realistic scenarios, will probably not run out of space on this device, which is interesting, right? A lot of samplers are very constrained by the internal memory, they're like RAM, basically, and this seems to play directly from the flash storage, and that makes it a very different instrument because you can DJ from this thing, storing full tracks on it and then just playing them from the pads. The one thing that a lot of people rave about the SP line are the effects, and I think this is no exception. It has an extremely versatile effects section with effects that are particularly interesting for mangling samples and making specifically the cassette simulation and the vinyl simulation, I think, are very popular in the lo-fi genre, and it's actually quite fun to take something that sounds very, very clean and turning it into a dust bowl in a second on this device. And the last point is that it's for what it is, for the build quality and the possibilities that you have on this device is actually really competitively priced. It's cheaper than a lot of the competition, and it's actually, for me, it seemed like a very good value for money. So it's not the most important point, but it's definitely something that I took into consideration. One thing that made me buy this sampler in particular is the graphical display. Previous generations of the SP line, like the 303 or the 404 in its various incarnations, didn't have a graphical display. And that graphical display makes a lot of things much easier, but one of the things that I particularly like about this is the sample editing. And if you're like me, most of the time you're using a DAW to build your music, then it's kind of hard to imagine editing samples without a graphical display. And the implementation of the sample chopping on this device is great. It's very quick if you kind of know how to use it. There's a little bit of a learning curve there, but if you're used to it, you're getting results really, really fast. And it's still, because you have that graphical display, it's still a lot more precise than what you get on units where you just have a numerical display or something like that. So my first hardware sampler was an MkII S2000, and that one has like a 2-line text display, and so no graphical support at all. And so I know what it is like to edit samples that way, but it's not fun to me. And this is one of the things, like I have this, like I said, I have the Korg Elec Tribe, and it has this huge graphical display. It's actually a little bit bigger than the one on the SP, right? And it is, they didn't build in graphical sample editing, and it's so infuriating to me because they have that display, and for some reason they didn't want to implement that, and that doesn't make any sense to me at all. And yeah, I particularly like this this implementation here. So the interesting thing I think about the SP is the very particular workflows. They are peculiar in more than one way, right? The good thing about it is that it has a really flat memory structure, a really flat menu structure. And that is great because, you know, that it has lots of buttons. So you're basically just pressing buttons. You never need more than 2 button presses in a row to get where you want to go to. But that also means that over the time when the software became more complex, and we're on version 3 now of the operating system, there's lots of like double assignments to buttons, and you have to know where you're at in the software to know what kind of button does what. And that can be infuriating at times, and it gives the device a very steep learning curve, and you kind of have to know all of these button presses by heart to get some performance out of your editing and workflow processes. And there's like this one particular thing that I find super irritating about this is that it has these menus where you're like you're going into somewhere, and then basically to go back to where you need to go, you sometimes have to press exit to be able to go to a different place, right? And that is really infuriating to me. That doesn't make any sense. Like it says on the display, please press exit to get there. And you know, that's, I mean, if it says on the display, the software obviously knows what you want to do, so why doesn't the software do it already? I think it probably has a little bit to do with like that double assignment to buttons, because it means that depending on the context where you're in, the button presses can result in very different things. So that's maybe one of the reasons, but it's still, it feels so weird to me, and it's not good user experience. So I'm a software developer. I have to deal with like this user experience thing on a daily basis, and something like that would never fly, right? That doesn't make any sense. So that's one thing that irritates me, I think, the most about the device. The other thing that I noticed, and is a little bit weird for a device of this quality, is that it has some really weird aliasing artifacts, especially if you use the envelope. So you can probably hear that, like sometimes. There it was, like sometimes it has these weird artifacts, and they only seem to happen when you use an envelope, and it sounds like aliasing to me. It sounds like the implementation of the envelope is probably a little bit rough and doesn't anti-alias. It's weird. It's something that I wouldn't expect from a device of this kind of class and caliber, so to speak. So that's a bit weird. And apart from that, like I think that's all I wanted to say about this device in this first video. Hopefully, I'm going to make a couple of more videos about my specific workflow and how I use it at some point, if I get to use it more. I'm, with all the complaints I have about the workflows and everything, which is a lot of it is just getting used to it, right? That's sort of part of the process. And I think if you're coming from an SP-404 or something like that, but stuff may feel a lot more familiar to you. But I'm just used to software more, and maybe to other devices with a little bit more of a logic kind of flow of menus. But apart from that, I really love it. I think it's going to enable me to do different things with sampling, and I'm really looking forward to that, to spend some time like digging into this and working more with samples, which I've always, I grew up making music on the Amiga with Pro Tracker, which is only sample based. So this feels a little bit like coming home in a way. But like I still feel like I have so much to learn about this, and this device enables me to hopefully do that. And I still think, even this is now on version 3, and they've added some great features in the last few versions, especially around resampling and being able to dump patterns to samples and everything, and like a lot of workflow improvements that make it really easy to organize your samples and everything. I think there's still room for improvement, and if I would be able to state a couple of wishes, I think the first one is to clean up these really irritating workflow bugs where it's like, if it says please press exit, just go where the user wanted to go. That's not really a thing that should be there. And one very particular thing that other people have articulated as well is that I find it kind of funny that this thing doesn't have any kind of sidechain compression style effect, which is something that would be relatively easy to implement, I would guess. Question is a little bit like, where does the sidechaining come from? But even like something like a rhythmic ducking of sorts, like the circuits implemented in their firmware, I think would make a lot of sense, especially for like genres like lo-fi, where this is actually used quite a lot as an effect. And so I'm wondering why they left that out. So yeah, that's a very particular wish, I guess. But yeah, that's my first take on the Roland SP-404 MkII, and I would be interested in hearing about your experiences, or what you are using this for, and how you feel about the things that I talked about. And yeah, hopefully see you soon, and I hope you have a great day.